In this video, I'll be showing you the best beginner and intermediate towers in Tower Defense Simulator by ranking every single one of them based on how good they are for beginners. First, I'll be going from the worst towers for beginners to the best towers for beginners. So make sure to like the video, subscribe to my channel, and without further ado, let's get into the video. The worst tower for beginners is easily Medic. It's very cost inefficient, the base healing ability is useless, and Revive doesn't do much when most enemies now just give debuff immunity for beginners. And bosses done don't even last that long anymore for beginners. You only buy this tower once you are using towers like Minigunner or Accelerator. Other than that, it's very bad for beginners. Easy F tier. The second worst tower on this list is easily Scout. Sure, it's the first tower in the game you get, and it's free. But after beating the tutorial, you can literally just buy DMan and Hunter for free. It's really bad at everything, don't use this tower. It's going to be in the F tier. Just delete this tower, man. Golden Scout won't even be good ever anyways. The last tower in the F tier category is Paintballer. Sure, it has Splash, but this tower literally has one of the worst cost efficiencies I've seen in TDS, especially for its low range. 24 DPS for 8500 with 10 range? Just use DemoMan, it's literally better in every single way possible. Even if it has no hit detection. They're usually easy in the first few game modes anyways, up until Molten. The only reason why it's above Scout and Medic is because it can hit more than one enemy, but other than that, easy F tier. Next up we have D tier towers, first one being Sniper. It's not terrible, but it's just really not worth using, due to Hunter existing. Hunter has 3 times more DPS at max, and has 2 times faster fire rate. It doesn't matter if you have high range, if your DPS is terrible. It's only not an F because it actually can do something in the first few game modes, which is why it's in the D tier. Now, we are in the C tier towers. Soldier is pretty good for beginners, however it falls off quickly compared to Hunter, which can be pretty good in Molten, as out DPS. You have also a chance to get one of the weaker golden perks, hence why it is in B tier. If you don't care about golden perks that much, then Soldier can be a pretty good tower, which is why it's in the C tier. Freezer can melt enemies' defense by 33% and has decent slowing down capabilities. However, the low DPS is the main reason why it's not really a great option to use for beginners. You would only use this tower when you're playing at a higher level like Phone, Hidden Wave, or High Core, which is why it's in the C tier. It's still a great tower, just not good for beginners. The last tower in C tier is DMan, which is pretty good for beginners since it's free to get after beating the tutorial, and it's good for early game and mid game. However, it falls out quickly in Molten, which is why it's only in C tier. It's still a good tower for beginners when you want a coin grind. Finally, in B tier, we have Hunter, only 300 coins and can deal 60 DPS at max with a high range of 28. The only downside is its fire rate, which is why it's in B tier. Otherwise, it's a really good tower for beginners, and I would say this is the best tower to get first, as it will help you with progression a lot. Last in B, we have Rocketeer. This tower is pretty good for the early game bosses, and even for sub DPS. The dead zone isn't that big of a deal, as you play on easy maps mostly, because it has high range also. The only downside for Rocketeer is the low explosion radius, which is why it's in the B tier. Finally, we have A tier towers. First up is the Militant. It's also really good for beginners, as it's basically Hunter without the one weakness. It's consistent and generally pretty good in the early game, and throughout Molten. It is a tower you should buy after Hunter, since it's only 1500 coins. Then you should be able to easily beat intermediate mode with it. It also falls up somewhat in late game, which is why it's in the low A tier. Next tower in A is Pyromancer, which is great for early game defense and crowd control. It has 50% defense piercing, and you also have a chance to get one of the best golden perks in TDS when buying this. It's not as good as Molten due to the usage of burst immunity a lot more often, which is why it's staying in the A tier and not S. It's still a great option to use in Trio or Quad Fallen, and Hardcore though. Then we have the Ace Pilot. It's good for the entire game, it's great for crowd control, but it not being that good for final bosses is what makes it only an A tier. If it did better for final bosses, it would definitely be in the S tier for beginners. It's also kind of pricey, like 3500 is kind of a lot. Lastly in A, we have Shotgunner. It's great for speedruns, will help this tower grinding a lot in game modes like Molten. It's good for crowd control, however, it's kinda hard to use, which is why it's in the A tier and not S. The first tower in S is Trapper. Trapper is great for early game in all game modes and crowd control with spikes and landmines, and overall good for the entire game. It even has bear traps. It can be good for sub DPS for the final wave of Molten, and kind of in Fallen, which is why it's in the low S tier, deservingly. Military base is great in the mid to late game, especially in Molten. Level 4 is still extremely cost efficient and just makes early to mid game Molten and Fallen a lot easier. Level 5 can even be good for the final boss, which is why it's in the deserved spot of S tier. Quick boss is good for the entire game. It's free when you're level 30, and it's fairly cost efficient. You also have a chance to get one of the best golden perks in the game, which is a lot stronger than the regular tower. Just generally a great tower to use for all game modes, which is why it's in the deserving spot of S. Alright, the best tower for beginners is obviously the farm. It really gives you money. What else can you ask for? Definitely the third tower you should buy. So after Militant, it's really one of the best towers in the game, so going for it is obviously in the high S tier. Anyways, that's about it. If you want more videos like this, let me know, and yeah, peace.